We've made it to the conference finals. Of course, I'm Nate. I'm joined today here by Ben. We'll have some correspondence from Zach, but he unfortunately could not join us live today. So it's a classic undisputed segment between me and Ben here today.
Nah, so here's the thing, Nate.
It is my turn, Ben! So, we're starting it out with the Eastern Conference Finals here. We've got the Knicks and the Pacers. Candidly, I could not have been more wrong in my Eastern Conference second round predictions.
Yeah, I will say that I was the highest on the Knicks out of the three of us. Not by a whole lot in the predictions, but you know, if you tell me Tatum goes down, I would have picked the Knicks in 7 or something like that. But yeah, the Pacers are having an insane run right now for no reason. It would seem.
I will say, with the Tatum thing, I think the series was over before that. Like, they were down in that game. Yeah. I don't think they were going to win it, and that was 3-1.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, if you tell me before the series that Tatum goes down sometime in the series, I would have picked Knicks in 7, like, before any game started, type of thing. But yeah, they were cooked even with Tatum. I don't think it affected the result. Although he was going off in that. Was that game 4?
That would have been game 4, yeah.
I would say that my prediction of Tatum shot chucking in Madison Square Garden was like inversely just completely wrong, because he shot chucked at home and shot horribly the first 2 games. I'd have to check game 3, but game 4 he probably would have had 50 if he didn't go down.
Had he not passed away in front of our very eyes. I mean, like I said, though, the series was over before that happened because they couldn't hold on to a goddamn lead. I mean, it's like they forgot they had championship experience, which, I mean, sort of reminds me of what happened in the Nuggets last year. Very similar. I mean, shout out to the Knicks. Their defense held up pretty well, and they were holding the Celtics to like 90 points in some of those games. Their offense, I mean, it's what we expected. That's the side of the ball that they're better on.
Yeah, I will say that the Knicks offense has got me more optimistic for predicting them versus the Pacers, because originally I would think that their offense could kind of hold them back, at least like just consistently playing well. The Tibbs is a defensive guy, so the team game plan is oriented on defense, but has me more optimistic with the Knicks moving forward this series. Obviously, you beat the defending champs. You have anything else to say on the Knicks?
Basically, just shout out Mitchell Robinson. Lock him in the gym until he makes 10 free throws in a row.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a really great series aside from some interesting free throws. To move it over to the Pacers, though, I mean, aside from the blown big lead in game 2 where the Cavs were missing like a bunch of guys, it was just, all Pacers all the time. Lore accurate Nembhard strikes again.
Yeah. Donovan Mitchell went off in like almost all of these games, which is kind of a testament to how high paced the Pacers offense is, because you can just let the other guy go for 45 and you're still in the game. I do think that the Cavs offense without Garland is probably pretty hampered, and the double bigs work against most teams, but with a 5-out offense it kind of seems redundant. I think it was kind of a bad matchup for the Cavs here, and missing a couple guys doesn't help.
Yeah, sort of the opposite of my Mitchell Robinson shout out. It basically didn't even seem like Jared Allen was playing in that series. And I normally wouldn't call something like that out, but when you're the guy who said the lights were brighter than expected, I gotta say something about it. He appears to be attaching a bit of a playoff dropper reputation to himself, which is unfortunate. The opposite of that, every player on the Pacers appears to be just the biggest playoff risers we've ever seen.
Yeah, I was looking at Siakam didn't seem to do particularly amazing compared to his regular season, but every single young guy is just twice as good in the playoffs for an untold reason. It's a mystery.
Moving on to Knicks versus Celtics. This is a similar story to the other Eastern matchup, which I'll get to, which is a combination of abnormally poor shooting and injuries, losing this for the Celtics. I mean, Porzingis looked really bad. He was scared to assert himself, super inefficient, especially like in the paint and like on post-ups. Obviously, Tatum goes down in the middle of a really good game, but I think the Knicks probably go on to win that game and potentially the series, even with Tatum healthy, although I do think it was a little closer. Jaylen Brown also was not very good except for Game 5. Subpar efficiency, some bad turnovers, especially down the stretch, and just seemed a lot less dialed on defense, too, than last year, which felt really weird to me. Credit to the Knicks, though, for, taking advantage of all these issues with a, normally very good team, especially in how they beat them in the regular season. Like, Brunson was great. Other than Game 2, this whole offense was a kind of surprising high point against a team with the defense like Boston. I also want to shout out Mikal Bridges, especially. He shot really well for the whole series, especially in the fourth. Very clutch performance from him. But yeah, I think ultimately it was just the Knicks doing what they've done all regular season and taking advantage of a really shockingly bad Celtics performance. And like I alluded to earlier, I think it's a similar story for the Cavs. Obviously, no Darius Garland for some of the series. Even when he was playing, he was really bad. That was like one of the worst playing through an injury moments I can recall. Donovan Mitchell looked slow in Game 5 too. He had the hamstring issue, I believe. And I think they would have at least extended the series if both of them had been healthy. I think Evan Mobley was really the only dude who was on par with the regular season performance. You have Ty Jerome being inefficient. DeAndre Hunter has some lapses. And, with your top two guards injured, you really needed them to step up, and they did not. Jared Allen is also not great. I think there's some questions about what his future is for the Cavs. I think there's definitely some discussions to be had about moving off of him and putting Mobley at the 5. I still think this core can contend for a title, but it's definitely a storyline to keep track of this offseason. For the Pacers, shout out to everyone. The defense especially was what impressed me, I think. Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner is just a far better, defensive interior than I had given them credit for this series. Obviously, Halliburton is great. He has a few stinkers in games 3 and 4. But even then, the off-ball movement and the gravity he has and the decision-making, he's a winning player even when the shot's not falling. And then, obviously, Game 5, he gives you an insane game, 6 of 10 from 3. Just such a fun player to watch. I can't wait to see him in the conference finals. The Knicks versus the Pacers. Obviously, not the matchup I was expecting based on my second-round predictions. But I think this will be a really fun one. We've got two really high power offenses, lots of shooting. Both these teams can go 5 out. I think for my prediction, I'm going Pacers in 7. The key factor for me is just the Pacers defense and how well they held up against the Cavs, who were one of the best, if not the best, offense in the regular season. Obviously, you got to take that with a bit of a grain of salt due to the injuries in Cleveland, but Siakam and Miles Turner and even Mathurin had their moments on defense. And between all those guys, I just think there's a lot of problems for the Knicks. And with the Knicks, I think I was just less moved by their second round. I felt like it was a lot more just the Celtics fucking up and beating themselves. I think, if Tatum stays healthy, the series is a lot closer, and maybe they win it, maybe they don't, but it's certainly not as dominant as it was. And it just didn't feel like the same Boston team in the regular season. I was impressed by Mikal, like I said earlier. Josh Hart, too, broke his shooting slump a little bit. I just think it's a team with, the same defensive issues we saw this regular season, and just the Celtics failed to exploit them due to KP and Jaylen Brown, basically. And I think the depth also matters, too. The Tibbs factor is coming into play, I think, at this point in the playoffs. I could definitely see some injuries or just general fatigue starting to set in as we get into almost June basketball by the time the series finishes up.
It's time for some predictions here. on the Knicks versus the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. We understand how they got here, but who's moving on? Ben, I'll kick it to you first. Give me just your general thoughts here.
Yeah, I will say this is a very hard series for me to predict. High-paced offense of the Pacers versus the more, I wouldn't say grinded out, but a little slower pace of the Knicks here. I will say, like, just matching it up 1 through 5 here, the Knicks kind of do look like they have advantages at most positions. I'd say that Brunson's probably better than Halliburton, even though he's been having a good postseason. I would say that Mikal Bridges is probably better than Nembhard, accounting for his newfound mid-range, which he's had his whole career with the Suns and the Nets, but he's just finding that now. I would say Cat's better than Turner. Anunoby and Hart versus Nesmith and Siakam. I think Siakam could shift the series. Like I said before, he hasn't done spectacularly, but depending on what matchup he draws, you could see him shifting the series a little bit. But it seems just like every position the Knicks kind of have a better player at, so it'll just be on Halliburton to like raise the floor of everybody. And then bench wise, I would say they're about equal. We ran into this problem before with the Cavs Pacers. Like on paper, the Cavs are just way better, but didn't end up playing out like that. But I will say the Knicks have way more experience than the Cavs. They have all the confidence in the world beating the defending champs. So I'm feeling probably Knicks in 6 here. But in these playoffs, you never know.
Yeah, I do agree that, at least for the most part, the Knicks seem to have a better roster on paper. But like you also said, we would have said the same thing. And we did say the same thing about the Cavs. I just don't know how much I trust the Knicks defense with Cat anchoring it. I think that's probably my biggest X factor here, because on the perimeter they're fine, but if you do get into the paint, he had a decent series against the Celtics, but also the Celtics had a lot of weird offensive stuff going, and I just trust the Pacers offense more than what we saw from the Celtics in that series specifically, which was just odd. I again just think Josh Hart gives them some luxuries to sort of focus their defense onto Brunson. I don't think you trust that he's going to shoot really well from 3, even though he did have some good games against the Celtics where he shot well. I think, at least for the first couple of games, if he starts killing you, you switch it up, but you can live with leaving him open a little bit. Also, I do think Nembhard will be the matchup for Brunson, and I think he'll do a fine job. On the same token there, I think Bridges will be on Halliburton, and he'll do pretty good too. Yeah, overall, this is just a tough series to predict because none of us really thought these would be the 2 teams in the conference finals.
Yeah, certainly the Pacers.
I'm going to pick the Pacers in 7, though. I just think they're playing too well. Like, they are absolutely on fire right now. And it's sort of what we saw from them last playoffs until they got injured towards the end. And, yeah, they got swept by the Celtics, but that was a close series. We've been over that before. Basically what I'm saying here is trusting the numbers and the stats and the on-paper rosters has not been working for me this playoff, so I'm just going on vibes. And I'm saying the Pacers have better vibes right now. So I'm picking them in 7.
I wouldn't be surprised if it went 7.
I definitely think it'll be a close series, a really high-scoring series too, if I had to guess. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I just was moved by the Knicks, especially like having Mitchell Robinson off the bench is huge because Tibbs doesn't have to run his team to the bone. He has Miles McBride, otherwise known as Poop, who's been very solid. He's a good, seems to be a good defender. So like that's kind of, I would say, the hole in the Knicks defense is having a small guard for defensive purposes and a rim protecting big for defensive purposes, and they have Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride for that. So I think they actually have a lot of flexibility defensively. And then I'm just a fan of having 2 like 6'7", 6'8" switchable wings, especially for like a high-paced offense where thrived on having very slow bigs. I'm not sure. I didn't watch much of the Bucks series, but like Brook Lopez, Jarrett Allen, feasting on those guys where Mitchell Robinson, I think he had one play when he closed out to Jaylen Brown where Jaylen Brown's in the corner, he pump fakes, and then Mitchell Robinson just closes out without fouling and then just smothers him in the corner. Not that that's like a indicative of him being a great perimeter player, but I do think that they're a pretty disciplined defensive team, a pretty disciplined offensive team, just with a lot of experienced guys. But I mean, the Pacers were here in the conference finals last year, so, and Siakam's won a championship, so I can see this being a back and forth series for sure.
In that second round against the Celtics, I was really intrigued by the Knicks' double big lineup, which I think works better than most of the other double bigs we've talked about, because obviously there's Cat, who basically isn't a big on offense.
Yeah.
I would definitely think they'll deploy that, at least to start the series, and try to contain Siakam that way. You're not super worried about Miles Turner creating his own shot, in my opinion. He's more of like a catch and shoot, lob threat type of guy. So I think we'll see some of that. That'll be interesting. The thing with having Mitchell Robinson on the floor, I gave him a shout out for that Celtics series because he was great, but there's obviously the Hackam-Mitchell stuff where he's shooting a ton of free throws because that's what the Celtics wanted from him. And we said to each other at one point in our group chat that 1 point per possession in the playoffs is really not that bad, and against the slow, methodical offense that the Celtics were trying, that was pretty much true. I don't think that's going to be the case against the Pacers with how fast they play and how high-powered their offense is. If you're throwing Mitchell Robinson out there to shoot 45% from the free throw line and get roughly 1 point per possession, you're going to get outscored. So I think we'll probably end up seeing less of him, especially to end quarters when they're in the bonus. I mean, we'll see how that plays out. Maybe he randomly shoots 70% from the line. That'd be interesting. But I'm going to trust the numbers on that one, that he's not a good free throw shooter, and I think that could be a problem against a team who plays with the pace that the Pacers do.
Yeah, it's an interesting, though the Hackam-Mitchell's interesting because you really have to wait until you're like one foul to give out of the bonus, because otherwise the same thing will happen with the Celtics did, where they were like, I think they had like 2 fouls, so they just intentionally fouled Mitchell twice, and then they just subbed him out of the game, and they're just in the bonus.
Yeah.
So, and the bonus is, favorable for like everybody but Mitchell. All the Knicks can shoot free throws, so I don't see that as like a huge impediment, because you're not going to play him the whole game anyway, so you just get him to start quarters or like deploy him more strategically. So, right. I mean, this is Tibbs we're talking about, so he will not mind sitting his bench players. Really like Tibbs coaching in these couple series, and Brunson's just been huge for them, and they've been able to hide him on defense pretty well. That'll be a big thing in the next series, where like who's Brunson going to guard. And
what I was thinking about Brunson, I actually think against the Celtics he had a really good defensive series. Jaylen Brown had it in his head that he's way taller than Brunson, so he can back him down in like the sort of mid-post area. But Brunson's like 5'9", 290. He's built like a fire hydrant is what I'm getting at. You're not backing him down even if you're bigger than him. If you have him on a perimeter player, that could end up being a problem. I think they'll probably stick him on like Nesmith for the most part. I think you'll live with that. He's not too much of an offensive threat. I honestly think you get away with a few possessions a game of him on Siakam. You don't want that to be your main matchup there, but you're not like scrambling if that's what happens. You just live with the result. But I mean, Tibbs probably knows better than we do because he's Tom Thibodeau. I'm pretty excited to see what he's got in store for the matchups defensively, actually, because this Pacers team runs a really fun, cool offense, and there are a couple players in Tibbs' starting lineup that you do have to worry about guarding guys. Should be a really interesting series. You got any more thoughts on this one?
Nah. I mean, shout out Ariel Huckporty.
Shout out Pacome Dadier.
Oh, shout out Jahlil Okafor. I just realized he's on the roster.
Is he really still on the roster?
I'm looking at an old box score, so perhaps not.
I recall Jahlil Okafor. This is sort of a full circle moment here. Him signing with the Pacers, that news dropped while we were recording our reaction to the Cat trade. If you made it this far, be sure to leave a comment, tell us what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. And once again, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.